So let's get into talking about the deep darling of the Democratic establishment, the demagogue in training. She's wanted to be president her whole life so badly that she will do anything, including, allegedly, take out some people. Miss Hillary Rodham Clinton, ladies and gentlemen, appearing back at MSNBC, doing her best to paranoid more people as much as possible. Because Hillary Clinton, if there's one thing that she can do, is go on the media and scare the bejesus out of her base that stands in her way. So here is Ben Swann, who's a fantastic reporter, investigative journalist. He pointed this out, saying Hillary Clinton is now pushing for Americans who spread disinformation to be criminally charged. We're already seeing this in the UK. We're already seeing this in Canada. And now it's approaching the United States, folks. They say everything comes in threes. And this is the act. This is the globalist affair that is now devouring countries like a plague. It's taken over England. It's taken over Canada. It's approaching America. It's taking the world by storm, that we have to clamp down on people and censor them. Because if word gets out about our hideousness, our activities, anyone holds us accountable, our reign of power, our reign of tyranny, and people suffering is over. And we are at the point now, this is actually legit serious. We're at the point where we're in the modern day dark ages, where the lords, the higher-ups have all the control, they have all the information, keeping us so in the dark, the peasants, to keep our head in the sand and just go with the flow, to work for the oligarch, to flourish the oligarch, and reign over us as their dominion. It's insidiously, it's just absolutely insane and barbaric what these people are capable of. And they're capable of this because they hide the information. They don't want word to get out. Here's Hillary Clinton addressing this to Rachel Maddow.
Just as Mueller indicted a lot of Russians who were engaged in direct election interference and boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence, because just
prosecuting people for discussing ideas, whether being correct or not, would help deter people away from propaganda. As being told by Queen Propagandist herself that she wants to prosecute people sharing information online and having open discussions about politics with even people you disagree with, which I consider that a healthy alternative for society. That's what we should be doing. That's what a healthy society should be doing, is having these discussions. Even if you disagree with them, even if you find them awful and off-putting, engage with them, have a conversation, grow from discourse, not silence, but grow from it. And she wants to criminally prosecute these people. Wants to criminally prosecute Americans for sharing information online. You tell me that doesn't sound like some sort of Stalin, Hitler, dictator, totalitarian bullshit you're hearing right now. Tell me this is helpful to democracy. Tell me how this is going to be beneficial for humanity. Because I've seen enough history, I have read through history, and there is no point in any point of history through our existence in humanity that censorship benefits society. It makes things worse. And that's what we're seeing right now. That is why we're seeing a polarization. That's why we're seeing so much hatred in the streets. Because of the mass censorship. Because we're eliminating half the country. We're exiling them because they don't fit in to the one dominant narrative that they want us to fit into line to. Anyone that colors outside the lines is considered an awful traitor, according to people like her. Remember, this is the lady that called you deplorable. Use the word deplorable for half the country. This is a sick, twisted supervillain that's now suggesting to Rachel Maddow, what if we locked up normal Americans that don't fit into our narrative? You tell me if that sounds almost similar to the years of propaganda that we were told, like Kim Jong-un was doing to his people, or how Joseph Stalin was doing to the Russians, the USSR days, how Adolf Hitler would silence the press because he didn't want any acuity to his reign. And now Hillary Clinton is suggesting that to save democracy in America. That's just diabolical. Absolutely diabolical. And considering the fact that just a short while before that, when Hillary Clinton was on Morning Joe, as you're about to see here, she's contradicting herself. She contradicts herself so much when you put all the media appearances together. So Clinton, who famously refused to accept the 2016 election results, is warning that 2024 may be the last election ever if we continue down this path. She must know something we don't. She says that even the thought of one political opponent being jailed or forced out of business is one too many. It's a scary thought. Someone who wouldn't accept the validity, I don't know why I can't pronounce that word, of an election doesn't really believe in democracy, do they? It's not even, they don't want a democracy. Democracy, republic, representative republic is the worst thing for them. They want tyranny. They want control. They want the oligarchy. They will do everything to preserve that oligarchy. They have duct tape and bandages to keep this machine going to suppress you. And luckily, there's more and more people from both the left and the right that got so sick and tired of this BS that are finally waking up to the storm and are retaliating and being rebellious against the tyranny. That's what we saw with the Freedom Convoy here in Canada. That's what we're seeing with all the organized protests that are going on in the United States. That's what we're seeing with worker strikes. That's what we're seeing with farmers, is people uniting together to say this system that we were told endlessly was going to help us was all just a lie. It's a fabricated lie to keep people like her at the reign so that the news media could continue to propagandize and lie to you and sell you the idea that the oligarchy works best for you. So here's what she said to Joe Scarborough.
Determined demagogue, unfortunately supported by members of his political party, other enablers, people who care more about a future tax cut than the sanctity of the Constitution, are falling in line behind him. They are trying to excuse some of the most outrageous things that you just recited. And I don't think the press has done enough to basically say, okay, the circus is here. You can watch the circus, but let's tell you what that means. Let's talk to people who have a real understanding of how dictatorships evolve. Let's look at the people that he admires and what they've already done. You know, back in 2016, we didn't have interviews with him. We didn't have a track record of 4 years in office. You know, there was a lot of speculation.
Yeah, back in the day, we gave him a primetime reality show on NBC for so many years. We invited him onto talk shows. We adored him. He hosted Saturday Night Live so many times. I told him to run for president. He went to my daughter's wedding. Back in the day, he was such a good little boy for the establishment. And then all of a sudden, he ran for politics, and he did a couple no-nos. And that's when Mother Clinton had to storm in and do dictatorship on him. The amount of absurdity, the amount of narcissism, like this is a pure sociopath. This is a pure sociopath to sit there and argue that your political opponent is doing everything that you are doing to your political opponent. That, hey, Donald Trump wants to arrest and lock up people that disagree with him. You're doing that to him. You're doing that to the movement. That was what January 6th was all about. It was trying to incite an insurrection, which is now deemed a Fedsurrection, if you know how many federal agents were actually in presence of that. The whole purpose of that was to find a way to criminalize and penalize the mega culture. You were trying to demonize half the country for ruining the country. Everything that you were saying about Donald Trump is what you're doing to Donald Trump. That is what a sociopath you are. And the fact she can't even see that, she can't even see her own hypocrisy, shows how sinister, how evil, how dastardly a woman like her is. As Tulsi Gabbard says, she is the mother of war criminals. A queen of warmongering. My apologies. I knew I was going to butch up that. And this is why. Because her entire focus, her entire mindset is dedicated to keeping control. That's all she wants. She wants control. She wants to have control of the party. She wants to have that ability to remain in control. Even though she is the most hated person in politics, the most hated individual, that when people see her continuously go on these public tours and these media interviews, that they are so exhausted, they cringe the moment she arrives because they know that she is not helpful to any situation.
And I understood that people wouldn't take what I said necessarily as gospel about what I thought could happen. I get that. But now we know. We've seen him and we've heard him. And so we need to do a better job of making it absolute.
We came, he saw, he almost died. It almost sounded like that. It almost sounded like that. You could pretty much use that for today. The fact that, you had two individuals who are suspiciously very, very deeply close to the rest of the federal establishment, both intelligence-wise, military-industrial complex, and some political insiders. You could see the connection. And consider the fact that even Tucker Carlson pointed this out at the beginning of the year in January. He said that because they have done everything, lawful activity, trying to trump up charges against him, trying to manipulate, propagandize more people, trying to attack regular citizens, trying to do that raid on Mar-a-Lago. They have done everything in the book to try to silence this guy out, to try to silence out Donald Trump, and they have failed at every point in turn. And what was the last thing they could do? Was knock him out, take him right out. And they've even failed to do that. So now the tables are really twisted for them. And now they got to find a way to excuse themselves out of blame or any scrutiny for the two attempted assassinations on a former president. So let's see the rest of this.
Absolutely clear that someone who says these things, maybe he wouldn't jail all of his political opponents. One is one too many. Maybe he wouldn't try to force out of business the members of the press who didn't agree with him. One is one too many. We go down the line. And maybe this would be our last election, because someone who will not accept the validity of an election is someone who doesn't believe in elections. He believes in his own power, his own right to power, and his demand that he be installed regardless of whether he gets the votes or not.
Oh, God. If it isn't the pot calling the kettle black. The man doesn't respect the electoral process. The man has no regard for democracy in America. Go back, let's rewind back to 2016. Let's rewind how that took effect. When America made its choice, they gambled with a game show host because they were so sick of the establishment down their throats that they rolled the dice with a reality star, as buffoonish as the guy is. What happened after that? Did Hillary Clinton just step aside and go, okay, we'll see how this works? No. In fact, she did the opposite. Hillary Clinton personally approved a plan to share Trump-Russia allegation with the press in 2016. So not even proof, just a made-up story that her campaign put together because she would not concede the election. That went on for numerous years, even after Trump passed on the baton to Joe Biden, even after they got their guy back into office. They still want to push Russiagate because they are villainous. They will never, ever, ever allow an outsider, even with Trump, who is no different than these guys. Again, he partied with them. They were best friends. They're golf buddies. Even with Trump, they cannot ever, ever have an outsider in control ever again. And whether it being Trump, whether it being Tulsi Gabbard, whether it being RFK, whether it being Jill Stein, think of all the conspiracies and the lies and the bullshit that they smeared these people with because of Hillary Clinton, because of the Democratic Party, because of deep state insiders that cultivate all this. And now she goes on to Rachel Maddow and suggests that we need to lock people up for having conversations. We need to control the thought process. We need to get the thought police out there to arrest your ass, have you rot in a jail cell because, God forbid, you shared an opinion. As she said about protecting the Constitution, as she said that Trump is damaging the Constitution, you want to arrest people for exercising the First Amendment. You want to arrest people for free speech. She really is just a sick, twisted psychopath. She is so focused on their career, so focused on this, that she can't even see how exposed her hypocrisy is, how deep, dark that skeleton closet is, that people can see right through her. I saw right through her. And I see right now through Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the rest of the entire, whether Democrat or Republican, it's an entire uniparty used to screw you. Why do you think Dick Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris? Why do you think Dick Cheney, of all people, supports Kamala Harris? Is it because Dick Cheney supports abortions? Is that it? Is it because Dick Cheney has a bit of a flair for exotic women? Or is it because Dick Cheney knows that Kamala Harris is a good little girl and is going to push the same war regime that he did as vice president? That nothing's ever going to change. Just like Joe Biden promised when he ran in 2020, nothing is going to change. And that is what they're doing. They're trying to preserve the fact that the oligarchy will still remain, that nobody, no outsider, no one that steps outside that system, outside the line, outside the box, will ever harness control in politics ever. That's what all this is about. And the fact you're hearing this from Madam Clinton talking about how precious democracy is. Democracy is on the ballot. We got to preserve the Constitution. We got to preserve the rights of everyday people. To openly suggesting that we need to jail people for speech. They say fascism comes in many forms, but I didn't realize that fascism would come in a rainbow flag, dressed up, sassy, kind of glamorous look. It's not the 30s kind of fascism that was kind of obvious to people. This is kind of the insider globalist cabal that you don't get to see in its true form.